Welcome back to the global Warwatch network. Imagine taking a standard 155mm artillery shell, firing it from a regular gun, and watching it travel the distance of a high-end cruise missile. That is exactly what is happening right now in the deserts of New Mexico. For decades, field artillery has relied on standard 155mm howitzers. They are cheap to operate and highly scalable, but they hit a hard physical wall. A conventional unguided shell fired from one of these tubes maxes out at a range of about 24 to 35 kilometers. If commanders need to strike deeper, they have to rely on precision missiles. These weapons can travel hundreds of kilometers, but they come with massive downsides. They cost millions of dollars per unit, take months to manufacture, and in a high-intensity conflict, stockpiles run dry almost immediately. This chart illustrates the problem perfectly. We have a dense, highly affordable strike radius close to the front lines, and an extremely expensive strike radius deep in enemy territory. Between them sits a dead zone, the capability gap. You either use a cheap shell that can't reach the target, or a $1 million missile you can't afford to lose. In modern attritional warfare, firing multi-million-dollar assets at low-value logistics hubs bankrupts a defense budget. Filling this specific gap with a scalable, affordable, long-range weapon is now a strict requirement for Allied forces to maintain strategic dominance. That brings us to the Scepter, officially designated the TRBM-155HG. Developed by a company called Tiberius Aerospace, this round recently completed a successful test firing in New Mexico. It was launched from a standard NATO howitzer, proving that an entirely different propulsion method can actually work in the field. The first major engineering hurdle for any complex artillery is the launch itself. A shell faces 18,000 times the force of gravity as the charge detonates behind it. Most delicate propulsion systems simply crush under that pressure. The Scepter survives because it relies on a highly simplified liquid-fueled ramjet. Unlike a traditional solid rocket motor that has to carry heavy, volatile chemical oxidizers on board to burn its fuel, a ramjet breathes the atmosphere. It uses the projectile's own forward velocity to ram air intake, compress it, and mix it with liquid fuel to generate thrust. Because a ramjet relies on forward motion to compress incoming air, it cannot start from a standstill. It uses the violent push from the howitzer barrel to accelerate the shell to Mach 2.4. Once it crosses that exact velocity threshold, the air pressure inside the engine is high enough, and the ramjet ignites. By ditching the heavy onboard oxidizer, engineers freed up internal volume. That extra space is packed with liquid fuel and a 5.2 kilogram payload. The physics of the artillery shell shift completely, unlocking speeds and distances that were physically impossible for traditional tube-launched weapons. Looking at this flight trajectory chart, we can see exactly how the Scepter behaves after that ignition. Within 6 seconds, it accelerates to Mach 3.5 and climbs above 65,000 feet. Flying at that extreme cruising altitude places the shell above the effective ceiling of short-range air defenses and well outside the range of terrestrial GPS jammers. The ramjet continues to burn, pushing the shell out to a maximum range of 150 kilometers. As it descends, an onboard hybrid GPS and inertial guidance system, assisted by AI flight corrections, steers the fins. This delivers a strike within a strict 5-meter radius of the target. That level of range and accuracy usually comes with a steep invoice. A current 155mm precision round, like the Excalibur, reaches about 50 kilometers and costs roughly $380,000. Tiberius Aerospace estimates the Scepter will cost around $50,000 per unit. That drastic price drop comes down to mechanical simplicity. The Scepter consists of only 68 unique parts, mostly machined from a single titanium alloy. And because it runs on standard military diesel or JP-8 jet fuel injected right before launch, militaries do not need to store volatile rocket propellants for decades. Tiberius is not alone in recognizing this potential. Defense heavyweights Boeing and Nammo are actively testing their own solid-fueled ramjet rounds for the U.S. Army, and the Indian Army is developing retrofitted ramjet shells with researchers at IIT Madras. For ground forces, the math is compelling. By feeding a ramjet shell into an existing breach, a standard 155mm gun becomes a strategic deep strike platform. capable of hitting command posts and air defense sites without requiring a single dollar spent on new launch vehicles. The hardware alone caught the attention of the UK Ministry of Defence, which recently signed a contract to become the launch customer for the Scepter, establishing a critical US-UK partnership to rapidly trial the system. But the projectile itself is only half the equation. Tiberius relies on a software operating system called GRAIL, Generative Real-Time Artificial Intelligence Lethality, to manage these munitions. Looking at this conceptual GRAIL dashboard, we can see how the software bridges the gap between combat and production. It directly links targeting data and component expenditure from the front lines to the industrial supply chain in real time, matching what troops need with what factories are currently building. A precision weapon loses its value if the logistics network cannot restock it. Maintaining an AI-driven supply chain ensures that militaries can iterate on hardware, update software, and deliver munitions at the exact speed of modern conflict. This software integration enables a model called Defense as a Service. Instead of building massive, centralized factories to pump out thousands of Scepter shells, Tiberius Aerospace simply licenses its intellectual property and blueprints to its clients. This map shows how that data flows. Insights gathered from a combat zone are sent to engineering hubs in the US and UK. Those hubs immediately distribute those blueprints to allied nations, allowing them to build the shells domestically using their own local industrial bases. By decentralizing production, this model protects NATO and its partners from rigid supply chain bottlenecks. Militaries do not have to rely on vulnerable global shipping routes or worry about depleting a single central stockpile. The combination of 150-kilometer ramjets and AI networks provides a structural overhaul for Allied defense. This shift reorganizes how nations arm, sustain, and ultimately fight in a high-intensity environment. Thank you for watching the Global Warwatch Network. If you found this breakdown valuable, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave your thoughts on ramjet artillery in the comments below. Follow our social media links on screen to stay updated.